Hello, I'm reading from Autobiography of Yogi. I'm starting at the top of the fourth paragraph on 379. Besides the numerous Benares disciples of Lahari Mahasaya, hundreds came to see him from distant parts of India. He himself traveled to Bengal on several occasions, visiting at the homes of the father-in-law of his two sons. Thus blessed by his presence, Bengal became honeycombed with small Kriya groups, particularly in the districts of Krishnagar and Bishnupur. Many silent devotees to this day have kept the invisible current of spiritual meditation flowing. Among many saints who received Kriya from Lahari Mahasaya may be mentioned the illustrious Swami Bhaskarananda Saraswati of Benares and the Dehogar ascetic of high statue Balananda Brahmachari. For a time, Lahari Mahasaya served as a private tutor to the son of Maharaja Iswari Naranya Sinha Bahadur of Benares. Recognizing the master's spiritual attainment, the Maharaja as well as his son sought Kriya initiation, as did the Maharaja Jatindra Mohan Thakur. A number of Lahari Mahasaya's disciples with influential worldly position were desirous of expanding the Kriya circle by publicity. The Guru refused his permission. One Chela, the royal physician of the Lord of Benares, started an organized effort to spread the master's name as Kashi Baba, exalted one of Benares. Again, the Guru forbade it. Let the fragrance of the Kriya flower be wafted in a natural way, he said. The seeds of Kriya will take sure root in the soil of spiritually fertile hearts. Although the great master did not adopt the system of preaching through the modern medium of an organization or through the printing press, he knew that the power of his message would rise like a resistless flood, inundating by its own force the banks of human minds. The changed and purified lives of devotees were the simple guarantees of the deathless vitality of Kriya. In 1886, 25 years after his Rahinket initiation, Lahari Mahasaya was retired on a pension. With his availability in the daytime, disciples sought him out in ever-increasing numbers. The great Guru now sat in silence most of the time, locked in the tranquil lotus position. He seldom left his little parlor even for a walk or to visit other parts of the house. A quiet stream of chelas arrived almost ceaselessly for a darshan (holy sight) of the Guru. To the awe of all beholders, Lahari Mahasaya's habitual psychological state exhibited the superhuman features of breathlessness, sleeplessness, cessation of pulse and heartbeat, calm eyes unblinking for hours, and profound aura of peace. No visitors departed without upliftment of spirit. All knew they had received the silent blessing of a true man of God. The master now permitted his disciple Panchan on Bhattacharyya to open in Calcutta a yoga center, the Arya Mission Institution. The center distributed certain yogic herbal medicines and published the first inexpensive editions in Bengal of the Bhagavad Gita. The Aryan Mission Gita in Hindu and Bengali found its way into thousands of homes. In accordance with ancient custom, the master gave to people in general a neem oil for the cure of various diseases. When the Guru requested a disciple to distill the oil, he could easily accomplish this task. If anyone else tried, he would encounter strained difficulties. After putting the oil through the required distilling process, that the liquid had almost completely evaporated. Evidently, the master's blessing was a necessary ingredient. This is a picture of Panchanan Bhaktacharya, disciple of Lahari Messiah. Lahari Messiah's handwriting and signature in Bengali script are shown above. The lines occur in a letter to a chela. The great master interprets a Sanskrit verse as follows: "He who has attained a state of calmness wherein his eyelids do not blink has achieved Sabhabi Mudra." Signed, Siri Sharman Charadeva Sharman. Like other great prophets, Lahari Messiah himself wrote no books, but instructed various disciples in his interpretations of the scriptures. A friend of mine, Sri Ananda Mohan Lahari, a great-grandson of the Master, wrote the following: "The Bhagavad Gita and other parts of the Mahabharata epic possess several knot points. The knot points unquestioned, and we find only mythical stories of a peculiar and easily misunderstood type. Leave the knot points unexplained, and we lose a science that India has preserved with superhuman patience after a quest of thousands of years of experiment." Lahari Messiah brought to light in clear of allegories the science of religion that had been cleverly put out of sight in a riddle of scriptural imagery. No longer an unintelligible jugglery of words, the formulas of the Vedic worship have been proved by the Master to be full of scientific significance. We know that man is usually helpless against evil passions, but these are rendered powerless, and man finds no motive for indulging in them when there dawns on him a consciousness of superior and lasting bliss through Kriya Yoga. Here, the give-up, the negation of the lowest nature, synchronizes with a take-up, the experience of beatitude. Without such a course, moral maxims that embody mere negatives are useless to us. It is the infinite, the ocean of power that lies behind all phenomenal manifestations. Our eagerness for worldly activity kills in us the same sense of spiritual awe. Because modern science tells us how to utilize the powers of nature, we fail to comprehend the great life in back of all names and forms. Familiarity with nature has bred contempt for her ultimate secrets. Our relation with her is one of practical business. We tease her, so to speak, to discover the ways in which she may be forced to serve our purposes. We make use of her energies, whose source yet remains unknown. In science, our relation with nature is like that between an arrogant man and his servant, or in a philosophical sense, nature is like a captive in the witness box. We cross-examine her, challenge her, and minutely weigh her evidence in human scales that cannot measure her hidden values. On the other hand, when the self is in communion with a higher point, nature automatically obeys, without stress or strain, the will of man. This effortless command over nature is called miraculous by the uncomprehending materialist. The life of Lahari Messiah set an example which changed the erroneous notion that yoga is a mysterious practice. In spite of the matter-of-factness of physical science, every man may find a way through Kriya Yoga to understand his proper relationship with nature and feel spiritual reverence for all phenomena, whether mystical or of everyday occurrence. We should bear in mind that many things inexplicable 1,000 years ago are no longer so, and matters mysterious now may become lawfully intelligible a few years hence. The science of Kriya Yoga is eternal. It is true like mathematics. Like the simple rules of addition and subtraction, the law of Kriya can never be destroyed. Burn to ashes all books on mathematics. The logically minded will always rediscover such truths. Suppress all books on yoga. Its fundamentals will be revealed whenever there appears a sage of pure devotion and consequently pure knowledge. Just as Babaji is among the greatest of avatars, a Maha-avatar, and as Sri Yukteswar may justly be called a Jan avatar, or incarnation of wisdom, so Lahari Messiah was a Yoga avatar, or incarnation of yoga. By the standards of both qualitative and quantitative good, the great master evaluated the spiritual level of society. The great master elevated the spiritual level of society. In his power to raise his close disciples to Christ-like stature, and in his wide dissemination of truth among the masses, Lahari Messiah ranks among the saviors of mankind. His uniqueness as a prophet lies in his practical stress on a definite method, Kriya, opening for the first time the doors of yoga freedom to all men. Apart from the miracles of his own life, surely the Yogavatar reached the zenith of all wonders in reducing the ancient complexities of yoga to an effective simplicity within the ordinary grasp. In reference to miracles, Lahari Messiah often said, "The operation of subtle laws that are unknown to people in general should not be publicly discussed or published without due discrimination." If in these pages I have appeared to flout his cautionary words, it is because he has given me an inner reassurance. However, in recording the lives of Babaji, Lahari Messiah, and Sri Yukteswar, I have thought it advisable to admit certain miraculous stories. I could hardly have included them without writing also an explanatory volume of abstruse philosophy. As a householder yogi, Lahari Messiah brought a practical message suited to the needs of today's world. The excellent economic and religious conditions of ancient India no longer obtain. The great master therefore did not encourage the old ideal of a yogi to be a wandering ascetic with a begging bowl. He stressed rather that the advantages of a yogi of learning his own living, of not being dependent on hard-pressed society for support, and of practicing yoga in the privacy of his home. To this counsel, Lahari Messiah added that the heartening force of his own example. He was a modern, streamlined model of a yogi, and his way of life as planned by Babaji was intended to be a guide for aspiring yogis in all parts of the world. New hope for new men, divine union, the Yogavatar proclaimed, is possible through self-effort and not dependent on theological beliefs or in the arbitrary will of a cosmic dictator. Through the use of Kriya key, persons who cannot bring themselves to believe in the divinity of any man will behold at last the full divinity of their own selves. Chapter 36. Babaji's interest in the West. Master, did you ever meet Babaji? This was a calm summer night in Saramapur. The large stars of the tropics gleamed over our heads. As I sat by Sri Yukteswar's side on the second-story balcony of the hermitage. Yes, Master smiled at my direct question, his eyes lit with reverence. 3 times I have blessed by the sight of the deathless Guru. Our first meeting was in an Allahabad at a Kumbh Mela. The religious fairs held in India from time immemorial are known as Kumbh Melas. They have kept spiritual goals in constant sight of the multitude. Devout Hindus gather by millions every 12 years to meet thousands of sadhus, yogis, swamis, and ascetics of all kinds. Many are hermits who never leave their secluded haunts except to attend the Melas, and therefore bestow blessing on worldly men and women. I was not a Swami at the time I met Babaji, Suryutswar went on, but I had already received Kriya initiation from Lahari Masaya. He encouraged me to attend the Mela that was convening in January 1894 in Allahabad. It was my first experience of a kumbha. I felt slightly dazed by the clamor and the surge of the crowd. I gazed around searchingly, but saw no illumined face of a master. Passing a bridge on the bank of the Ganges, I noticed an acquaintance standing nearby, his begging bowl extended. "Oh, this fair is nothing but a chaos of noise and beggars," I thought with disillusionment. I wonder if Western scientists, patiently enlarging the realms of knowledge, edge for the practical good of mankind, are not more pleasing to God than the idlers who profess religion but concentrate on alms. My smoldering reflections on social reform were interrupted by the voice of a tall sannyasi who halted before me. "Sir," he said, "a saint is calling you." "Who is he?" "Come and see for yourself." Hesitantly, following his laconic advice, I soon found myself near a tree whose branches were sheltering a guru with an attractive group of disciples. The master, a bright, unusual figure with sparkling dark eyes, rose at my approach and embraced me. "Welcome, Swamiji," I said affectionately. "Sir," I replied emphatically, "I am not a Swami. Those on whom I am divinely directed to bestow the title of Swami never cast it off." The saint addressed me simply, but deep conviction of truth rang in his words. I was instantly engulfed in a wave of spiritual blessing. Smiling at my sudden elevation into the ancient monastic order, I bowed at the feet of the obviously great and angelic being in human form who had thus honored me. Babaji, for it was indeed he, motioned me to a seat near him under the tree. He was strong and young and looked like Mahari Masaya, yet the resemblance did not strike me, even though I had often heard the extraordinary similarities in the appearance of the two masters. Babaji possesses a power by which he can prevent any specific thought from arising in a person's mind. Evidently the great Guru wished me to be perfectly natural in his presence, not overawed by knowledge of his identity. "What do you think of the Kumbha Mela?" "I was greatly disappointed, sir," I said, but added hastily, "up until the time I met you. However, saints and this commotion don't seem to belong together." "Child," the master said, though apparently I was nearly twice his own age, "of the faults of the many judge not the whole. Everything on earth is of mixed character, like a mingling of sand and sugar. Be like the wise ant that seizes only the sugar and leaves the sand untouched. Though many sadhus still wander in delusion, yet the Mela is blessed by a few men of God realization." In view of my own meeting with this exalted master, I quickly agreed with him. "Sir," I commented, "I have been thinking of leading scientific men of the West, greater by far in intelligence than most people congregated here, living in distant Europe and America, professing different creeds and ignorant of the real values of such Melas as the present one. They are the men who would benefit greatly by meeting with India's masters, but although high in intellectual attainments, many Westerners are wedded to rank materialism. Others famous in science and philosophy do not recognize the essential unity in religion. Their creeds serve as insurmountable barriers that threaten to separate them from us forever. I saw that you are interested in the West as well as in the East. Babaji's face beamed with approval. I felt the pangs of your heart broad enough for all men. That is why I summoned you here. East and West must establish a golden middle path of activity and spirituality combined, he continued. India has much to learn from the West in material development. In return, India can teach the universal methods by which the West will be able to base its religious beliefs on the unshakable foundations of the yogic science. You, Swamiji, have a part to play in the coming harmonious exchange between the Orient and the Occident. Some years hence I shall send you a disciple whom you can train for yoga dissemination in the West. The vibrations there of many spiritually seeking souls come flood-like to me. I perceive potential saints in America and Europe waiting to be awakened. At this point in his story, Sri Yukteswar turned his gaze fully on mine. My son, he said, smiling in the bright moonlight, you are the disciple that years ago Babaji promised to send to me. At this point in his story, Sri Yukteswar turned his gaze fully on mine. My son, he said, smiling in the bright moonlight, you are the disciple that years ago Babaji promised to send to me. I was happy to learn that Babaji had directed my steps to Sri Yukteswar, yet it was hard for me to visualize myself in the remote West, away from my beloved Guru and the simple hermitage peace. Babaji then spoke of the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Yukteswar went on. To my astonishment, he indicated by a few words of praise that he knew I had written interpretations of several Gita chapters. At my request, Swamiji, please undertake another task, the great master said. Will you not write a short book on the underlying harmony between the Christian and Hindu scriptures? Their basic unity is now obscured by man's sectarian differences. Show by parallel references that the inspired sons of God have spoken the same truths. Maharaj, I answered diffidently, what a command! Shall I be able to fulfill it? Babaji laughed softly. My son, why do you doubt? He said reassuringly. Indeed, whose work is all this, and who is the doer of all actions? Whatever the Lord has made me say is bound to materialize as truth. I deemed myself empowered by the blessings of the saint and agreed to write the book. Feeling that the parting hour had arrived, I rose reluctantly from my leafy seat. Do you know Lahari? The master inquired. He is a great soul, isn't he? Tell him of our meeting. He then gave me a message for Lahari Messiah. After I had bowed humbly in farewell, the saint smiled benignly. When your book is finished, I shall pay you a visit, he promised. Goodbye for the present. I left Allahabad the following day and entrained for Benares. Reaching my guru's home, I poured out the story of the wonderful saint at the Kumbh Mela. Why didn't you recognize him? Lahari Messiah's eyes were dancing with laughter. I see you couldn't, for he prevented you. He is my incomparable guru, the celestial Babaji. Babaji, I repeated awestruck. The Yogi Christ Babaji. The invisible, visible Savior Babaji. Oh, if I could just recall the past and be once more in his presence to show my devotion at his lotus feet. Never mind, Lahari Messiah said consolingly. He has promised to see you again. Guru Deva, the Divine Master, asked me to give you a message. Tell Lahara, he said, that the stored up power of this life now runs low. It is nearly finished. At my utterance of these enigmatic words, Lahari Messiah's figure trembled as though touched by a lightning current. In an instant everything about him fell silent. His smiling countenance turned incredibly stern. Like a wooden statue, somber and immovable in its seat, his body became colorless. I was alarmed and bewildered. Never in my life had I seen his joyous soul manifest such awful gravity. The other disciples present stared apprehensively. 3 hours passed in silence. Then Lahara Messiah resumed his natural cheerful demeanor and spoke affectionately to each of the chelas. Everyone sighed in relief. I realized by my master's reaction that Babaji's message had been an unmistakable signal by which Lahara Messiah understood that his body would soon be untenanted. His awesome silence proved that my guru had instantly controlled his being, cut the last cord of attachment to the material world, and fled to his ever-living identity in spirit. Babaji's remark had been his way of saying, "I shall be ever with you." Though Babaji and Lahara Messiah were omniscient and had no need of communicating communicating with each other through me or any other intermediary, the great ones often condescended to play a part in the human drama. Occasionally they transmit their prophecies through messengers in an ordinary way. That later this fulfillment of their words infused greater divine faith in a wide circle of men who learned the story. I soon left Benares and set to work in Singapore on the scriptural writings requested by Babaji. Sir Yukteswar continued, "No sooner had I begun my task than I was inspired to compose a poem dedicated to the deathless Guru. The melodious lines flowed effortlessly from my pen, though never before had I attempted Sanskrit poetry. In the quiet of night I busied myself over a comparison of the Bible and the scriptures of Sanatan Dharma. Quoting the words of the blessed Lord Jesus, I showed that his teachings are in essence one with the revelations of the Vedas. Through the grace of Paramam Guru, my book, The Holy Science, was finished in a short time. The morning after I concluded my literary efforts," Master continued, "I went to the Rai Ghat here to bathe in the Ganges. The Ghat was deserted. I stood still for a while, enjoying the sunny peace. After a dip in the sparkling waters, I started for home. The only sound in the silence was that of my Ganges-drenched cloth swashing with every step. As I passed beyond the sight of the large banyan tree near the river bank, a strong impulse urged me to look back. There, under the shade of the banyan, and surrounded by a few disciples, sat the great Babaji. "Greetings, Swamiji." The beautiful voice of the Master rang out to assure me I was not dreaming. "I see you have successfully completed your book. As I promised, I am here to thank you." With a fast-beating heart, I prostrated myself fully at his feet. "Parama Guruji," I said imploringly, "will you and your chelas not honor my nearby home with your presence?" The Supreme Guru smilingly declined. "No, child," he said. "We are people who like the shelter of trees. This spot is quite comfortable." "Please tarry a while, Master." I gazed entreatingly at him. "I shall be back at once with some special sweetmeats." When I returned in a few minutes with a dish of delicacies, the lordly banyan was no longer sheltered the celestial troop. I searched all around the Ghat, but in my heart I knew that the little band had already fled on etheric wings. "I am deeply hurt. Even if we meet again, I would not care to talk to Babaji," I told myself. "He was unkind to leave me so suddenly." This was a wrath of love, of course, and nothing more. A few months later I visited Lahara Messiah in Benares. As I entered his parlor, my guru smiled in greeting. "Welcome, Yukteswar," he said. "Did you just meet Babaji at the threshold in my room?" "Why, no," I answered in surprise. Come here. Lahari Messiah touched me gently on the forehead. At once I beheld near the door the form of Babaji, blooming like a perfect lotus. I remembered my old hurt and did not bow. Lahari Messiah looked at me in astonishment. The divine Guru was gazing at me with fathomless eyes. You are annoyed with me. Sir, why shouldn't I be? I answered. Out of the air you came with your magic group, and into thin air you vanished. I told you I would see you, but I didn't say how long I would remain. But Babaji laughed softly. You were full of excitement. I assure you that I was fairly extinguished by the ether, in the ether, by the gust of your restlessness. I was instantly satisfied by this unflattering explanation. I knelt at his feet, and the Supreme Guru patted me kindly on the shoulder. Christ, you must meditate more. Child, you must meditate more, he said. Your gaze is not yet faultless. You could not see me hiding behind the sunlight. With these words, in a voice like a celestial flute, Babaji disappeared into the hidden radiance. Okay, that is near the bottom of page 394. That's it. Thank you. Bye.